Hello and welcome to this edition of the DCiReporter. My name is Franklin Garcia and I'm happy to be able to connect with many of you watching the transmission now or later. I have put together what I hope is an interesting program for the next 30 minutes. Please share the transmission with others so they can also benefit from the program's content. Today's main topics are going to be COVID-19, the U.S. Census, federal funding for the CARE Act, where we have, once again, DC veteran for DC statehood advocate, Mr. Harold Thomas, DC Immigrant Workers Relief Fund, where we also have activist Hector Rodriguez, and we'll end the program with a tribute to the late Faith Dane. But first, I want to start on a happy note. Yesterday was the birthday of iconic civil rights leader, Dolores Huerta. It was her 90th birthday. Dolores Huerta is a labor leader and a civil rights activist who, with Cesar Chavez, is a co-founder of the National Farm Workers Association, which later became the United Farm Workers. Mrs. Huerta has received numerous awards for her community service and advocacy for workers, immigrants, and women's rights, including the Presidential Eleanor Roosevelt Award for Human Rights and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Ms. Huerta is the originator of the phrase, "Si se puede." A few years ago, I had the honor of filming a public announcement for DC statehood with Ms. Huerta. And I want to take this opportunity to wish her a happy birthday, a happy 90th birthday, and I also want to play for you that public announcement. All right, let's see if we can find it now. Let's see, give me a quick second here while I find Mrs. Huerta's announcement that I did with her. Okay.
For decades, I have fought for the rights of women and workers across our nation. Now, I've come to fight for you in the District of Columbia.
DC residents pay federal taxes and serve in the military, yet have no vote in the U.S. Congress. As U.S. citizens, we deserve equal representation.
By supporting DC statehood, I stand by the principles of democracy, respect for our fellow Americans, and the power of the vote.
Join us in the fight for DC statehood by calling your representative in Congress and telling them to support DC statehood for Washington, D.C., because we all deserve equal representation.
Together, we will say, "Si se puede," and finally become the generation to achieve full democracy for the people of our nation's capital.
Si se puede!
For decades, I have fought for the rights of women and workers across our nation. Now, I've come to fight for you in the District of Columbia.
Let's talk a little bit about the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus or the COVID-19 pandemic continues to grow. Currently, we have in the world more than 1.7 million infected. That's with 107,000 dead or more than that. In the U.S., we continue to see the numbers increase. We now have more than 522,000 infected people. That's more than 19,000 new cases. We also have, let me make sure that the audio here, oh Lord. Okay, sorry about that. I had the audio included there. But so I was saying that in the U.S. we have more than 522,000 reported people infected. That's more than 19,000 new cases. And we have over 20,000 dead. In D.C., here in the local area, we have more than 100 people infected with 47 dead. We have in Maryland more than 7,000, exactly 7,694 people infected with 206 dead. In Virginia, in the state of Virginia, we have 5,077 infected with 130 dead. Now, what we have begun to see a flattening of the curve, unfortunately, the numbers keep going up. Please visit coronavirus.dc.gov to make sure you keep up with all the latest information and also assistance with this crisis, with this pandemic. Now, I want to remind everyone to please complete the 2020 census. Now that many of you are home, it is a good opportunity to do it. The census has 10 questions, and you can complete it from the form you received in the mail, or you can go online. It should take about no more than 30 minutes to complete it. Sometimes it takes you 15, even less. Visit my2020census.gov to complete it online. Now, you know that the census, you should have received the form already. The census day was April 1st. Now, that doesn't mean that you had to have had it completed by April 1st, but that's when it started counting. And so there's some key days here. You can start completing the census online, or you can mail the form right now. You can do it now, but there's some key dates that the census people are looking at. So for example, between March 29th and May 1st, they're going to try to reach out all the homeless people out there to make sure that they too get counted. Then from April 16th to June 19th, they're going to go and try to get the people in colleges, senior centers, in prisons, everywhere with their large gatherings, large groups of people. They're going to try to get those. And then between the 27th of May and August 14th, it'll be for people who forgot to complete their form. So if you happen to be one of those people that you received the form and you haven't completed it and mail it back by that time, by May 27th, or you haven't gone online and completed it, then you may get a visit to make sure that it gets responded. That'll happen between May 27th and August 14th, because remember, by law, in December, the census people have to deliver the numbers to the president and the Congress. That's a requirement by law. Not sure if that'll change because of the situation we have right now. A key factor of the census is, remember that in about March 31st, the Census Bureau will send redistricting counts to states. Now, this information is used to redraw legislative districts based on population changes. Now, let's talk about the federal funding for DC, the coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security. It's called really the CARES Act in Congress. Now, the coronavirus relief legislation passed by Congress and signed by President Trump provides the District of Columbia with significantly less funding than the rest of the country. We talked a little bit about this before. The district has a larger population than Wyoming and Vermont, but received fewer funds than all 50 states in the stimulus bill. It was included with the territories of Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Northern Mariana Islands, which collectively received $3.3 billion in funding. Now, the city residents will get each about $700 per capita or per person, compared to residents in states who are on track to receive $2,000 per capita or per resident. Each of the 50 states received $1.25 billion in aid. Congressional leaders are meeting again to put together another package to the country get through the pandemic. Congress should include the $750 million they cheated DC out of the first coronavirus or the CARES Act package they passed a couple of weeks ago. Please visit showupfordc.com so you can help us remind Congress that pays more federal taxes per capita than any other state, and that they pay more taxes than. Therefore, DC must get funded like a state and not a territory. Now, we now have Mr. Harold Thomas on the phone. Mr. Thomas is a veteran with Veterans for DC Statehood, and he's going to chime in on this issue. We had him here on the first show we had a little bit ago. Let me make sure that we still have Mr. Thomas. Are you there, Mr. Thomas?
Hello.
Okay, wonderful. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm well as can be. Hanging in here with this stay home and be safe, advocacy. So I'm good. Thanks to the good Lord.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, tell me, what is your thought on this issue that we're having here with DC being cheated out of so much of the funding?
Well, I think it's an affront, to the citizens of Washington, D.C., and those who support statehood for DC around the country. Now, for one, veterans from DC has fought with veterans, military personnel from around the world, around the country. And we fought to preserve the rights and freedoms that other states enjoy, especially the title of statehood. Now, we deserve the same benefits as any other citizen of the United States, because, like I said, veterans have fought and died, to preserve those rights and freedoms that supported to the United States of America. And I feel it's an injustice, to the citizens of Washington, D.C., and to veterans everywhere who fought for one cause, and that was a united effort to preserve the rights and freedoms that's guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, in short, there were originally 13 states in the Union, and 37 requests to become states was accepted and admitted into the Union to form the 50 states. However, those 37 territories that requested statehood did not have to receive ratification of the Constitution. So it's been stated by, especially the GOP, that it would take a ratification of the Constitution for Washington, D.C. to become accepted as the 51st state. So how is it that applies to Washington, D.C.'s request, and it did not apply to the 37 other territories that requested to become statehood? So my saying is, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And what I would call on veterans to do is to unite, for the cause and the advocacy of Veterans United for statehood for DC, is to contact your families and relatives who are veterans across the states and ask them to contact their elected representatives and ask them what their position is on the issue of statehood for DC to have the same rights and freedoms that other states have. So that's my point of view.
Wonderful.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas, for being part of our show today. And we'll keep in touch, okay?
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. That was Mr. Thomas there. And now let's talk about another issue. The DC Latino Leadership Council created the GoFund Me DC Families Relief Fund to provide critical support to immigrants in Washington, D.C. and workers who have lost their jobs and income as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. While many Washingtonians can turn to existing safety net programs, including unemployment insurance, public benefits, and new federal and local relief efforts, immigrant workers are largely excluded from those programs. This relief fund will address this critical gap in our social safety net and will help support the most vulnerable members of our community who are impacted by this crisis. Please visit our website at DCiReporter.org to contribute. I will leave also a link to the GoFundMe page on this broadcast. The DC Latino Leadership Council's purpose and missions are to educate and advocate for the Latino community within the Washington, D.C. and the greater metropolitan area. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization established in 2013. I now have on the phone activist Hector Rodriguez, who will talk a little bit about this situation. Let me establish communication with Hector here. Hello, Hector, are you there?
Thank you, Franklin, for inviting me to your program. Thank you for everything you're doing. I want to speak to the needs of our immigrants and other low-income workers. The fact is that our immigrants protect our families. If you walk down the street, you will see a lot of our children being cared for by undocumented immigrants and people like that. Why? They are trusted with our children. They are trusted with our children while we go to work. Remember that. They also sustain our economy. It is the undocumented workers that do the dishwashing and the cooking in the restaurants that sustain our economy. Tourism is very essential to our economy. It's our largest industry, and the immigrants play a very considerable role in making sure that that industry is supported, and it's supported through their hard work. Every day they're there in the restaurants supporting that industry. They also take care of our kids, as I said. So the immigrants are trusted with our most beloved. They're trusted with our children, and also they're trusted with our parents and our elderly. They're out there taking care of our elderly and our parents while we are at work. So it is time that we consider the importance of this working class that is giving their lives. Right now, many of the immigrants are out there risking their very lives to sustain us in our economy with providing food and providing care for our city, cleaning, and all these kinds of jobs that not many people want to do. We are a sanctuary city. We have about 25 to 30,000 undocumented workers that are sustaining our economy. We're supporting the immigrants because it is a human right to support these families that come in, from conditions that are just like we're facing now. That's the kind of conditions that many of these immigrants are coming from. If you look at the condition of this country now, the immigrants are coming from situations like that. Lack of employment, lack of services, and chaos in their society. So you can understand now what we're going through. They have been going through that, and that's why they're here to participate in the economy of the United States and to contribute to our people. So right now, the city council is looking at ways that they can help the undocumented workers. They are still working with this issue. Yesterday, the Office of the Attorney General had a Latinx meeting where people were calling in, and they pointed out to two organizations, Jobs for Justice and Ajuda, that are working with them to help sustain our immigrants. We need more help to provide relief for our immigrants because they're excluded from the federal resources, but yet they support an important federal city's economy and the families that live here by their very hard work.
That's right. And one note that we should make is it's that an organization in DC called Events DC, it says that they're going to provide about $5 million worth of funding to that community. Now, we're not clear how or what channels are going to be used to disseminate that or the process to get that money to the community, but at least we're hearing somebody that's doing something. Have you heard? I know that as of today, there is no funding from the local government, that is the city council or the mayor has not started any initiative to get money into the undocumented population or people who are under situations that are not included under the regular measures that we're looking at. Have you heard of any task force being formed at the DC council that we're looking to getting some money to this community?
At this time, the city council is looking at that in a very serious manner. Every member during the last city council meeting that took place about 2 days ago, it was of interest to me that the city council members all had an interest in finding a solution to helping the immigrants. Up to now, they have not come up with a funding formula, but they're seriously looking into it, and I expect big things from our city council to help the immigrants. The Office of the Attorney General has taken some leadership in protecting the rights, their human rights, and working again, like I said, with Jobs for Justice and Ajuda, and now I hear Events DC. So they're taking some lead. And by the way, if anybody has any questions on that, they can call 202-442-9828. That's the number for the Office of the Attorney General, 202-442-9828, if you have further questions as to what they're doing. I expect that the City Council will come up. I know that the staffs are looking at that and are looking at ways that the City Council can play an important role in helping our immigrants, because they have supported our city as a sanctuary city, but now they have to come up with ways that they can financially help people that undergird our city's economy and protect our families.
Wonderful. Well, I should mention also that Hector Rodriguez is also an employee of the DC City Council. So I thank you so much for your intervention in our program tonight, Hector.
Thank you so much, and Franklin, for everything you're doing. And let's keep remembering to do something for our immigrants and to help those GoFundMe programs like the DC Latino Leadership Council has initiated.
All right. Thank you so much, Hector. All right. That was Hector Rodriguez. Now, on a different subject, at this difficult time, we have learned of the passing of Dane Faith. We now have a short tribute to honor the late actress turned politician. Let me play that for you. Faith Dane was born on October 3rd, 1923. She was an actress, musician, artist, and candidate for political offices in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Washington, D.C. She grew up and spent much of her life in New York City, where she played the character Mazeppa in both the original Broadway and theatrical release of Gypsy.
Can pull all the stops out till they call the cops out. Grind till you're fined or you're banned. But you gotta get a gimmick if you wanna get a hand. You can sacrifice your sacro, working in the back row. Bump and a dump till you're dead. Kid, you gotta get a gimmick if you wanna get ahead. You can. That's how burlesque was born. So but I do it with a horn.
Years later, when Gypsy was revised on Broadway without her, she sued the production, claiming that she had created much of the characterization of Mazeppa. Though her lawsuit was unsuccessful, producers developed the Faith Dane clause in actors' contracts, granting rights in any creative work actors do, developing their character to the production. Using the arts as her platform, she ran for office in the U.S. Virgin Islands in 1964 and managed to raise funds for various school art programs there. After moving to Washington, D.C. in the 1980s, she unsuccessfully ran a few times for mayor and other elected offices, also using an arts-based platform. She died on April 7 at the age of 96 in Washington, D.C. Again, thank you for joining me in this edition of the DCiReporter. If you like the transmission or found it useful, please share it with others. To know when the next live broadcasting in English will take place, please visit our website, the DCI Reporter. Let me put that on the screen here for you so that you can see it. The URL. And I thank you very much for watching, and please stay safe.